I felt for my entire life that I just was the embodiment of bad luck somehow. I was like, why is it that everything I do, I have to do 4 times in order for it to kind of succeed? It was ridiculous. And even my parents commented on it. Everything you do, whatever could go wrong, goes wrong. And so I just lived my life like that. It was just like, it was awful. I kind of got used to it. You never get used to that. It's still frustrating. Why is it that everything I do, I have to do 4 times in order for it to kind of succeed?
Okay. I look awful. I'll be right back. Okay. I actually sat down, went and used the restroom, and I came and sat down. I was like, oh, I forgot to make myself look beautiful. Okay, Lady Peterson. It's hard for me to put into words because what I'm trying to communicate to you, what I'm trying to show to you, what I'm trying to help you understand, that way you can do these things yourself, right? Because the whole reason I got the gifts of the Spirit is I worked really, really hard under the idea of I'm going to try doing what Christianity ought to do, and I'm going to have one rule that as best I possibly can, I'm going to obey the rules of heaven, because if it pays out, then I can say to other people, this is what I did, this is what I got, so if you want to do what I did, you'll get what I got. So in this case, it's access to superpowers, right? Gift of healing, you could call that a superpower. And then you'll get, access to God in heaven, which we all have all the time. But this is how I cultivated my relationship to where I now have the authority across Earth in different facets. Like, I'm not all powerful, but I have certain authorities that I can do. So I obviously pray for Jordan Peterson a lot because I want him to have the mantle of the prophet, which I believe he'll have in the future, but he still needs to choose it and then go to either a pastor or somebody within the office of the prophet to receive his anointing so it can be official. But then once he gets it, because gifts flow downstream, I mean, heck, they might flow upstream too, I don't know, but they go downstream, his daughter will receive those gifts. And I knew this to be true, but that's kind of as far as I've thought about it, because I have a lot of work to do, and I'm always thinking about new episodes and writing new episodes, and then I also work 40 hours a week too. Sorry, I'm on the tail end of getting over COVID. So I'm listening to a clip of, what's Lady Peterson's name? Michaela Peterson. And she's talking about how hard her life was and how just everything seemed to go wrong. And then she said, it's almost like it was 4 times harder than anyone else. And then my brain kicked into gear. I was like, wait a second, that's a spiritual number. Because 10 is a number of process and 4 is a number of suffering, as far as I know, and I'm pretty knowledgeable on such things. And I was like, oh, okay, so that was a potentially prophetic moment. So since Dr. Jordan Peterson hasn't decided whether or not he wants the mantle of the prophet yet, his gifts hasn't come downstream, but because that's still a possibility, that means Michaela had a potentially prophetic moment now. So if Dr. Jordan Peterson decides he doesn't want the gift, then I don't really know what'll happen, actually, if he decides he doesn't. But once he decides he does, we'll see the fullness come into view and come into power of Michaela's. So let me start over because I'm realizing I'm confusing everyone. I'm telling God to give Jordan Peterson the gift of the prophet. because I'm telling God to do this now, I'm working with God to do this now, that means in the past, Jordan Peterson's being set up to have that option should he want it. If he does want it, he's going to, in his past, be set up very strongly to have it. So basically, I'm saying, God, I think Dr. Peterson should have a chance at being a professional soccer player, we'll say. And God will say, okay. So God will install in Dr. Peterson's life things that would make him a very effective soccer player. Like hard times, so he learns to focus and strive for awesome. And then times of training where he learns to run 20 miles every single day, so a mere soccer game doesn't bother him at all. And then, he had to walk to school and back with a soccer ball every single day, so now his dribble and passing powers are beyond anything we've ever seen. That's how God works. Because when God makes a man to his full fruition and gives him lots of blessings, you come out like the best or one of the best soccer players in the world. That's how God works. God makes heroes. He doesn't make like, oh, you're gonna then do something small, I guess you'll be okay. No, God only makes like champions and supermen. So if Jordan Peterson gets the mantle, Michaela gets the mantle, and she can don it as early as she wants, but it'll cultivate in her life. And how much she wants to grow into it is up to her. But yeah, the moment she said, my life is 4 times as hard, I went, oh, she's being trained and she just doesn't know it. And by the way, so God is outside of time, right? So, still coming off of COVID, I'm losing my train of thought. So the reason Michaela suffered so much in her past is because future Michaela wants to be able to use her giftings to maximum fruition level, right? Okay, so let's say you got the gift of flight, like Superman, right, or Goku. You can fly around. And I came up and I told you, hey, by the way, in 30 years, you'll be able to fly faster than a jet. You'll be able to fly supersonic speeds. But it's going to take you 30 years to train up. You'd say, okay, that's awesome. But what would have been cooler is if when I got the power of flight, I could already travel that fast. And that's what God does. He trains you when he can isolate you, right? So he takes you aside, trains you, and then when you get your gifts, you know how to use them fully. And not only that, let's say you're a hockey player, right? Get out there, good hockey player, because you trained with God. God trained you. Bam! Not only do you get on the ice and you know how to do it, God's going to make sure you understand how to coach, how to maybe run a league, how to maybe bring it around the world, how maybe to start in other countries. Like, he gives you like a full training for everything you're possibly going to do. And that's why we get frustrated. We're like, why are we going through all this training? But what we don't understand is the things that we've worked out that we want to do, which are different from the things we think we want to do. We go into life, we're like, I think I want to do this. And then you're like, oh, I don't really like to do this. I want to do this other thing. God preps you for this other thing. Like, he'll kind of train you over here, but he'll set you up to what you actually want to do. And that's why people get frustrated. They're like, oh, I want to do this or I don't want to do that. God knows what you want because God knows everything and he loves you infinitely. So by the time you get into the game, if you're working with God, things are going to be awesome. If you're like, I'm going to work over here, you're not going to have as good of a time. Now, I'm not saying do what God tells you to do, actually. Actually, God and I have gone back and forth a lot. But you want to talk to God about it. Don't fight him, because you're going to want to fight him. And you can be mad. It's very important. A lot of people will tell you, oh, don't be mad. No, be mad at God, because God is the only person who can take your hate and take your anger and process it into like rocket fuel. Because I'll go to God, I'll be like, man, I hate you. Okay, I don't really hate you, but I was full of hate and I had to say that, so I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but like, man, I'm full of hate. I don't know what to do. So I have to yell at you. Like, I have to take it to you and just be like, I'm sorry that I'm so full of hate. And I want to overcome that and I want to be better with it, but like, I'm all alone. You know, who can tell me what to do with this violence that's inside of me? And I'll go to God and I'll be like, so I've got this violence inside of me, and and it defines me. There's a violence inside of me because I'm strong and I'm full of rage and I'm full of violence. So God, you need to take that and tell me how this can be used for good. A good example for this for me is since I grew up homeschooled, I've always really, really appreciated pretty girls. I'm like, wow, I really like, because I was by myself, right? So I didn't really socialize with any girls until I was 14 in high school. So it was like, so I'm in college, and I'm like, God, like, I have this desire to go and have sex with as many different girls as I can. But I know there's something righteous in here, even though I know this isn't the way you want me to live my life. And I only had one girlfriend in college. I didn't like go around in that sort of manner. And so I sat down for like an hour, and I was like, what's going on here? Because I don't believe that this is just like something to throw away. A lot of people just throw it away. Like, no, let's look. Maybe there's something here. If we just need to screw it on correctly or mold it correctly. I'm sorry, I'm getting way off point. And so we sit down and we kind of look at what's going on and why I have these feelings, and we just like really start to appreciate what I have. And then he shows me, he goes, you've got two things. One, you've got a gift to be a very stout husband. Like you have a gift of being a family man and being a dynamic, dutiful husband, right? Someone who really appreciates his wife and has a good interconnected marriage. I was like, okay, cool. And he's like, and the other thing is you really love women. You really love the female part of the species. I was like, okay, so where's this going? He goes, well, what's happening is you have a heart full of agape, right? Agape is everlasting true love. It's the unconditional love, right? So even if you do something bad, your dad still loves you. And he goes, you're not a dad yet, but you've got like a fatherly love where you want to show everyone an intimate love. And I'm like, huh? That doesn't really sound like me. And he goes, no. You don't want to, it's not that you want to connect with all these. It's that you want them to have a connected, intimate, life-affirming relationship. And I'm like, oh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to socialize with as many people, but especially women, female half of the species, as possible. And I'm going to connect them to you, where they can have a fully intimate life that is rewarding and full of infinite, dynamic types of love. And he's like, yes. It's like, oh, I can do that. And so instead of doing this incorrectly, where I just try to go and have sex with as many women as possible to try and have some life-affirming consequence, some life-affirming results, I instead started working like that. Okay, so I'm going to talk to people. God's going to show me intimate part of their lives, like, oh, maybe you're hurting over here, or maybe you're looking for this over here. And then I'm going to point them in the direction of Jesus, and Jesus is going to take them on like a Lord of the Rings adventure. And so that way at the end they're the hero, or they're like, elven princesses and human leaders of men. That I could get behind. That I can completely give up. And that's why I think men can truly and simply and easily give up the idea of trying to have sex with as many different people as possible, because the reward you get from figuring out your faults with God is 10 or 100 times more powerful, more potent, better. So he said, it was never about having sex with everyone. It was always about fulfilling their mysterious needs through an impossible form of miraculousness and benevolency and coolness. So anyway, love you guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode.